Hi, this is Editor Troxel. In this tutorial, we're going to look back at the last two tutorials and examine where did some of these numbers come from, and then look to see what happens if the project needs to change orientation or size, or we'll look at some changes that can be made there. Now, there is one caveat to all of these numbers that we have been using. First of all, they seem to work great for Arial 10. If you're using some other font or some other font size, these numbers are not going to work. And in doing some experimenting, it appears that the way that I got these numbers really doesn't work with other fonts or other font sizes as well. So if you want to kind of play with these numbers and tell me where I might be going wrong, post in the comments. Let me know what I did wrong in figuring out these numbers. So anyway, where did I get these numbers for the Arial 10? Let's take a look at that first. Our original project size was 1920 by 1080, and the font used was Arial 10 point. When we looked at the complete sentence, let's walk through a narration lesson, we found that that was 266 characters long. Then we looked at each one of the individual words. Let's was 40, walk was 38, through was 63, a was 15, narration was 71, and lesson was 54. That's a total of 281. Now we noticed that the 281 and the 266 didn't match. So what was the difference? Well, our 281 minus 266 was 15. And so we had 5 spaces in here. We had between let's and walk, between walk and through, between through and a, between a and narration, and between narration and lesson. There were 5 spaces. So 15 divided by 5 spaces gives us 3 extra per space. So when we looked at the individual ones versus the total sentence, we had 3 extra characters per space. We looked at the size of a space, which was 11. And 11 minus 3 is 8. That's actually where I got my minus 8 from in our parameters. If we look at our parameters here, my distance adder is set to minus 8. Then I took Let's Walk Through Narration Lesson and duplicated it so that we had Let's Walk Through Narration Lesson twice, and I noticed that roughly filled the full screen width. Now I didn't zoom in and get everything 100% exactly precise. Assuming that Let's Walk Through Narration Lesson twice is double of 266, that would be our 1920 width divided by 532 equals 3.6. So I'm converting this size to this size. At least that was the goal behind these numbers. Or Let's Walk Through a Narration Lesson. Our original 266 roughly filled half the screen. So our 960, which would be half the screen, divided by 266 equals our 3.6. And if we come back over here, this is where I got my multiplier number from. And I did play around with these numbers to make sure that these were the right numbers to use. And if we go back and run this on this original project, we will see that let's walk looks very good, walk is very good, through a narration and lesson, and they all look extremely close. But say we wanted it in a different orientation. For example, say we were looking at doing a vertical video. First thing we'd need to do is change the properties. And we'll just do a standard 9 by 16, 1080 by 1920. And you'll notice that the image got smaller. We could actually go into our pan crop and adjust this to match output aspect. Looks like we need to scoot that over just a little bit, so we could do that. But then what do we do about all these titles? The best thing to do on these is select them all, and then you would go to Tools, Scripting, and you would resize generated media. And so now these are all back to the original size. So if we run the script now, you will notice that the words are not being moved to the correct location anymore. So we need to have different numbers for that. How are we going to get those different numbers? Well, here we have an opposite dimension. We're going from 1920 to 1080 to 1080 by 1920. And so what I want to do is I want to take the old width divided by the new width. So I take the 1920, divide that by 1080, and I get 1.77777. If I take my 3.6 and multiply it by that number, it comes out with a 6.4. And then if I take my negative 8 and multiply that by that number, it comes out with a negative 14.22. So let's go in and change this to a 6.4 and negative 14.22. Save that. Now we'll run the script again. And we can notice the let's is off the screen. Walk covers up the word walk there on the left edge. Through a narration, and then lesson will once again be off the screen. So by changing the multiplier and the adder, we were able to get it to show in the correct place. So let's say we were wanting to go to 4K instead. We'll notice that our words once again are very small, and so we want to select all of these again and go to Tools, Scripting, Resize Generated Media. And now they are all back to the original size. And now when we run the script again, notice that lesson is way left, narration's a little left, A is a little bit left, through's right, walk is right, and let's is way right. So, what number should we be using for this resolution? Well, in this case, we have the same dimensions, but a different size output. So we're going from 1920 by 1080 to 4096 by 2304. So we want to do the new width divided by the old width. So the new width divided by the old width is 2.133333. Multiply 3.6 by that number and we get 7.68. And then we multiply negative 8 by that number and we get negative 17.07. Save this and run it again.
Let's walk through a narration lesson.
So this definitely isn't a perfect solution. There's definitely some oddities going on. The numbers don't work with all fonts. The numbers don't work with all font sizes. The numbers are a little strange. So take it for what it is. It is an interesting procedure that we went through to actually get this to work for this particular font. If you can make it work for other fonts, go ahead and post your solution here and let me know what you did. And we do solve the issue for this particular size, and it does work with other screen resolutions. It's just a matter of figuring out the exact numbers to use. And I thought this was an interesting little task that we did, and it will definitely simplify highlighting words if you use this particular font and font size. So take this for what it is. If you don't like it, that's fine. If you can modify it to work with other fonts, I'd like to hear what you have to say. But it's been a fun little task, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and let me know what you'd like to see in the future. And like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next tutorial. Please sign up at www.jettv.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.